Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Iowa State Daily Sports Weekly podcast. I am Brett Schwellmeyer, sports editor. I'm your host for tonight's podcast, as always, and I'm going to be joined by my co-hosts once again. I'll have them introduce themselves.
What's up, guys? Assistant sports editor Pavel Markovic here.
Sports reporter Caden Storm.
Yeah, that's right. Caden's back with us this week. He was gone last week, so we're glad to have you back, Caden.
It's great to be back.
Yes, sir.
So we'll just dive right in, like we always do, with Iowa State's number 18, now Iowa State, then number 20, Iowa State took down Arkansas State. Huge win, 52-7. I wasn't expecting this big of a win. I thought the Cyclones would win, but I mean, they just blew the Red Wolves out of the water in this game. It was just no contest.
It wasn't even close from the beginning. Obviously, going up 14-0 at the first quarter, and then just kept putting their pedal to the metal straight from there. Like Rocco Becht in the offense, this is what we kind of expected in the first game against North Dakota. We kind of expected them to pull their starters and have a bigger lead like this against a team like that. But it was a phenomenal game all around. I feel like obviously we're going to talk about the running game really stepped up. Defense played it phenomenally well too, and this is just a great way to finish out non-conference play, I should say.
Yeah, Jack Trice was at about half capacity by the time halftime came around. So either that's a good thing or it's a really bad thing.
I mean,
I would love to see the fans stick around.
Me too. I mean, it's not every day that you get to see Iowa State win games like these. I mean, I remember just so many games in the past, just watching them throughout my, very long 21-year lifespan of just being on the other end of games like these. And to now see Iowa State be the team that can put this type of a beating on teams like these, it's refreshing. I'm not going to lie. It's very refreshing to see something like this.
And kind of like I talked about earlier, you kind of don't expect these kind of blowouts from Iowa State. We kind of expect them to kind of take it a little less easier and maybe just kind of run the clock out type of thing. But it was really refreshing, like you said, to get this win. Straight up domination from start to finish. I know Arkansas State scored that late touchdown, but even then, it basically felt like a shutout because what they did on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just kind of looking at everything, the running game for Iowa State obviously jumps out to me, at least. We had been waiting a long time. I mean, it's just a couple games, but it feels like an eternity in college football because this season's only 12 games long. So we were waiting a while to see the running back room finally erupt. It wasn't really Abu Sama who did it, who has been the RB1 this season. It was really everyone in the room who kind of stepped up. We had 5 running backs throughout the game. They all had a significant amount of touches, a solid amount of yards, and we had a lot of them score first career touchdowns.
So, talking about just the running backs, obviously talking about the main guy, Carson Hansen, the sophomore running back. Going back even to last season, he had to compete with guys, or first off, he had injuries to deal with, but then now he had to compete against guys like Abu Sama, Cartavius Norton, who's now left, and Eli Sanders. So now getting to see him this season, I know Abu Sama going into the season was projected to be a starter, and he still has been. And then they added a guy like Jalen Jackson from the transfer portal. So good to see Carson, looking healthy out there. He finished with 9 carries for 58 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, which were the first 2 of his collegiate career. So it was amazing to see him get those first 2 scores this year.
Yeah, it was fun talking to him post-game just because, I mean, he talked about that feeling of wanting to score a touchdown at this level and finally getting that moment. He said it was just obviously a really cool experience, but then to also say that he was equally as excited for his teammates, Aiden Flora and Dylan Lee, to also score their first touchdowns. And I think that was just really cool that all 3 of them were able to do it on the same day.
Yeah, sticking with the running back room, there's one guy we still haven't mentioned yet, and that's Jalen Jackson, who actually got the most carries in this game. And I think it really has kind of become a true running back by committee system, and I don't think that's something we expected at the beginning of the year. We talked about it preseason that we thought Abu Sama was going to be the workhorse. We thought he was going to be the lead back, and that it just hasn't been the case. I mean, it's only been 3 weeks, of course, but I mean, Jackson and Hansen are putting up just as great performances as he has. I mean, I really think they each provide their own kind of niche skill that it's a really well-formed backfield. I really like what we're seeing from it right now.
Yeah, if the room just has a different guy week by week be the guy, I don't think that that's going to be a bad thing at all. It might be a good thing because then teams kind of have to look at everyone in the room of, okay, how do we stop this guy? How do we stop this guy? And then someone pops off week after week. I think that the running back by committee room hopefully stays. I think it worked really well in this game.
It keeps the legs fresh, too.
It does, yeah. Because also, I mean, when you look at the amount of carries that everyone has, aside from the quarterbacks, we'll get to that in a minute. Flora had the least amount of carries of the running backs was 6, but the most was Jalen Jackson with 10. So everyone, all 5 of them, are just kind of in this range of, you're only getting X amount of carries, and we kind of saw that throughout the game. As the lead grew, substitutions were made, and everyone just kind of filled in where they needed to, and they executed.
Yeah, and then talking about more like the running back by committee thing, kind of last season too, like when talking about Sanders, Norton, and Sama, they kind of had that kind of rotation going until late season when Sama still ended up showing up and being the lead back going into the season. And obviously, of course, I think going into conference play, I feel like Boo Sama, obviously, starting this season has not been great, to say the least. He has room to improve. So it'll be nice to see him actually step it up come conference play, especially against this game like Houston, which would be a really big boost for him. So, and then, just talking about the running back by committee, I feel like just going into this season, I don't know if we're going to see much of Aiden Flora and Dylan Lee, just like being freshman running backs. I feel like we're going to mainly see Hansen, Jackson, and Sama being like those 3 running backs kind of rotated in. But, I feel like we could still see guys like Flora and Lee step up if they need the legs fresh, and they can still make a big impact at a big way.
I mean, especially when you look at when they were in the game and what they did, like Flora's touchdown happened like in the most garbage time ever. It was really cool to see him score. But at the same time, it's like, did they really need to have that happen? I mean, the game was already won.
Yeah, Flora's won. Yeah, they're already up by so much. I think it was like less than 2 minutes in the game, I think, or something like that. And then all of a sudden, like, they could have gone down. They could have just taken kneels, like, just to end the game. But instead, he wanted to score his first, which props to him. I'd want to score my first, too. You don't get many of these opportunities to find the end zone in collegiate football. So, it's, like you said, it was kind of garbage time, but still, he still showed some signs of, being a potential feature back someday.
I like Campbell adding on at the end of the game, man. I'm tired of this. Let's get up by 2 scores and sit on the lead.
Maybe we are ranked, so yeah, that makes sense.
Build that resume.
I mean, we're sitting out the game. The fans that stuck around want something to watch.
Yeah,
go put up points. We had all of our backups in. If you don't want us to score, don't stop it. Then you know what I mean. I think that's probably what his mentality was. You can't ask him to do much more than put in a whole backup offense. I mean, they're still it's not like they were throwing the ball over the yard. They're still just running the ball. So I love it. Keep adding on at the end of games if you can. Style points are everything. If you're, which we are at this point, thinking a possible playoff berth.
Yeah, I mean, let them have their moment, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I like what you said there. This is why we have you on the podcast, Katie, because you kind of challenge us, thinking a different way.
Yeah. Just talking more about the running game too, I think going into this game against Arkansas State, playing teams like North Dakota and obviously Iowa's defense, I think, don't quote me on this, I think they had 175 yards on the ground combined from both those games. But this game, obviously they got more than that and then some, 237 yards combined from all 5 backs plus the 2 quarterbacks. So
2 quarterbacks. 2
quarterbacks, yes, which we will talk about later, of course, like Brett said. But yeah, just phenomenal game all around. It's kind of just recapping this running game on Saturday.
Yeah, all around, I'm so glad that the running game looks to be back, no matter who's carrying the football. And I really liked, I believe it was Iowa State's first touchdown drive of the game where Carson Hansen had his longest run of the game, that 23-yarder. And it happened it was the play right after Benjamin Bramer had his 28-yard catch, which was his longest catch of the day. And on the receiving end of things, he was the one who led the way in receiving yards. So, guys, Benjamin Bramer might be back. We might have found our third option again.
It's really nice to see, because Campbell's been kind of talking about it. It seems like he's been pretty banged up recently. Still been playing, but not obviously to the level like we kind of saw last year. So it was amazing to see Bramer get his touches. Didn't score a touchdown, but still 3 for 73. You'll take that any day. Led the team in receiving yards. Was 1 catch away from being the team leading receiver. But still, even besides Bramer, the tight end group once again looked really well. Just even mentioning a guy like Tyler Moore, 2 catches, 17 yards, and the touchdown. And that touchdown was really something for him because, I think going back to last season, he was injured throughout the majority of it. I remember last season when I was covering Iowa State, he scored against UNI, and he kind of talked about Campbell, about how he's been dealing with injuries all his career. He's been wanting to get this opportunity, and then he got it once again today, being able to score in a big way. So, talking about him, other guys just it's phenomenal tight end room is all I can say. Even though Steve Klotz and Gabe Burkle didn't catch passes like they did against Iowa, they still perform well just blocking wise too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the passing game wasn't needed much in this game, but I'm glad that Rocco decided to spread the ball around a little bit when he had the chance, because
100%.
I mean, we've harped on it all season long so far that it can't be Higgins and Noel, and finally we saw Bramer, who, as you guys said, is finally starting to get healthy. Finally, he got in the game and he looked explosive. He looks fully healthy now. He looks fully ready to go. And I know, I mean, we were up by a lot at this point, but even just spreading the ball around to guys like Tyler Moore, like Benny Nyogi, and it's nice to see. It's refreshing, and hopefully it gels a little bit more and it helps going forward when we really get into the schedule.
Speaking of refreshing, how about that catch that Bramer had on that QB sneak? I mean, that was crazy. I just thought that Rocco was just going to put his head down, charge forward, get that first down, but he rears back, throws it, and Bramer makes arguably the catch of the year, in my opinion.
I honestly, I have to agree with you there. But like, even my thoughts going into it too, like he kind of looked like he kind of like mishandled the snap in a way. It looked like he didn't know what was going on. It kind of looked like a botched play at first, but then all of a sudden you see him like looking to sneak, and all of a sudden backs up and finds Bramer, and Bramer making that one-handed catch. Oh my God, I couldn't believe that the ball didn't touch the ground. I for sure thought it would touch the ground, but he said he held it up, didn't let it touch the ground. That was a completion. So, yeah, just nonetheless, I would have to agree with you. Catch of the year candidate for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so far I'd say that it's between Bramer and Noel's
opening
first play of the season. I'd say that's 1A, 1B top plays of the season so far.
Yeah, I love what Mauser is doing with this offense, especially with a play like that, to say that we're confident enough in our quarterback, in our tight ends, to make a play like this. And it makes sense that he would want to throw the ball to the tight ends. So it's good that they were finally being a part of the offense, because Mauser was the former tight ends coach. So
he might still be the tight ends coach.
I think
maybe.
He still is. He's like still the offensive coordinator. I think still the tight ends coach.
Okay, yeah. my bad. But yeah, just the fact that he trusts that room enough, he trusts Rocco enough to make those types of plays. It's refreshing.
It is very refreshing. But then, kind of looking more into the receiving game, yet again, we saw him found a third receiver option, like, wide receivers, not like typing tight ends, Benny Nagoye, besides Higgins and Noel, was the third receiver who got the most amount of yards, but it was only a one catch for 17 yards. And then obviously a guy like Kai Black, freshman receiver, only one catch for 7 yards. No catches for Eli Green, even though he had a couple targets. And Isaiah Alston, yet again, hasn't got a catch this season.
Wasn't Green the first target of the game, and it was an incomplete pass?
You might be right there. I don't even know for sure.
I think they targeted him a few times.
Yeah, he was targeted a few times, but then once again missed a couple times. And I remember that against North Dakota, he kind of missed him a couple times. And yeah, that's still kind of the issue we still kind of have.
Yeah, that connection between Green and Beck just has not worked. But I mean, obviously when your tight ends are starting to come alive, maybe you don't necessarily need it, because if those tight ends are going to end up being that third option, even that fourth option, maybe you can just get by with Higgins and Noel until then.
True. Yeah.
Also, Alston didn't catch a pass again either.
Yeah.
He's been non-existent on this offense.
Was he the one that was it him or Green that was lined up on the goal line fade?
I think it was Alston.
It was way off.
Probably Alston.
There was some sort of miscommunication there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even.
It makes sense to have him there just because he's like a foot taller than Green is. So.
Yeah.
And talking about just like, and obviously it's nice to have tight ends, those third receiving options and stuff, but, it'd be nice to have some guys who are a little bit quicker than the tight ends. I know tight ends obviously bigger can obviously make more bigger hits and stuff, but, it'd be nice to see the receivers try and get something, obviously it wasn't needed here. It wasn't really needed any of the other two games. So, I mean, maybe Houston is the game we're going to keep seeing every week, basically. Could it be the game? Could it be the game, I feel like Houston could be it. I don't know.
We just want to keep people on the edge of their seats,
Exactly.
Could this be the game? Could this be the time that we get that third option?
Yeah.
You never know. Yeah. But obviously the receiving game, they really spread out who caught the ball too. No one on Iowa State had over 5 catches. The guy who had the most catches in the game was Jaden Higgins, which makes sense. He's one of those two receivers, him and Noel. Higgins had 4 catches for 65 yards. And for the 5th game in a row, he had a touchdown, which ties him for the all-time record with consecutive games with a receiving touchdown. So Higgins has a big opportunity ahead of him to break that record against Houston, which would be really cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things you look forward to, kind of going back into last season with Higgins, it was kind of expected to see what he could do with a guy like Noel already there, experienced in the system already. So, Yeah, I'm glad he's really risen to the occasion, kind of stepped up and been that second option, like beside Noel, because Noel didn't even have like because I'd say one of his best games. He had 100 yards in each against Iowa and North Dakota. He only had 49 receiving yards here, and one of them came from a 44-yard catch and run. So it wasn't really the best day for him. But then again, he wasn't really needed in this game, which is good for him. Kind of getting a little bit of rest, not having to really rely upon him. So. Yeah, just kind of talking about Higgins. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can break that record against Houston on Saturday.
Yeah, I think this could be wrong. It's around the ballpark, though. I'm pretty sure I saw that Higgins' receiving touchdown streak, is the 5th longest active in the country. So he has a chance to maybe if whoever, I don't know who has longer streaks than him right now, but maybe they miss out. He can move up in that if he scores one. And I think he also has the 5th longest streak of consecutive games with a reception. I think with 30 plus.
That's crazy.
With a reception at least 30 yards?
With one reception, 30-plus games, I think.
Oh, wow.
Like consecutive games?
Consecutive games.
Dang.
It might not be 30.
That was subtracted.
I'm pretty sure it's also 5th active longest streak.
Yeah.
So
it seems pretty high, though, regardless.
That does seem
30,
high.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit lower than that. Don't fact check me.
Not a
Still,
consistent receiver, though, getting those catches when he needs to.
And, I mean, what an addition he has been to this team. Especially, I mean, last year he was obviously one of the bigger targets. This year he's definitely turned into one of them as well. That J&J duo, they are doing big things already this year. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Pavle, I mean, Noel didn't really need to do a big thing in this game. But I mean, when you have back-to-back games with, over 130 yards, it's like, all right, let me have a break in this game. Let me kind of rest up and prepare for this Houston game.
Yeah, but when you think about, like, even talking about going into this game, him having 130 yards in each game, we had the consideration of him getting the Blitnikoff Award this year for being the best receiver in the country.
Yeah, but that might be out of the window now after that game.
I mean, maybe this could be, like, the one buffer game he has. He really has to step it up, though, in conference play. And even not, though, I mean, I'm excited to see this kind of race to 1,000 because, Higgins was close. He knocked on the door. I think it was, like, 983. I don't know if it's the exact number, but he was still right on the doorstep of 1,000 receiving yards last season. But, both of these guys have that potential to be 2,000-yard receivers, and especially now with them being seniors and potentially going to the NFL draft someday, this could help raise their draft stock and potentially be high draft picks this next upcoming draft.
Okay, so I checked the stat. I got the wrong J. It's Jalen Noel.
Oh.
He's got the 5th longest active streak with 35 consecutive games with at least one reception. So, little fact check right there.
He'll probably continue
Jalen
that.
Noel.
He'll probably continue
I can
that
see how you get
season.
Yeah. Barring any injury.
Yeah, obviously.
I think he will.
100%.
He'll definitely
keep
that going.
When you look at the amount of yards that these guys have, Noel already has 317 through 3 games. Higgins has 208 through 3 games. Next on the list in receiving yards is Bramer at 96, and he had a majority of that.
73 today.
73.
Saturday.
Yeah, in that third game. So I like what you're saying. I think that Noel can definitely get to that 1,000-yard mark. Higgins will be close. I think he can get to maybe 900. He might need some big explosive plays like we've seen Noel have.
Yeah.
So
we've seen Higgins do it last season too. It's out of the question that he can do it. So
there's definitely a big possibility that both of them could do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just kind of touching on the quarterbacks that threw those passes to those guys. Rocco Beck didn't necessarily have his best game, but again, he didn't really need to because of how well the running back room played. Rocco finished 11 for 18, 204 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did have a pick. But that pick was crazy because Carson Hansen made the big heads-up play to, hit the Arkansas State defender, force that fumble, and get Iowa State the ball right back. So that was a really heads-up play by him to help his team out, help his quarterback out.
I think that might have been the interception Moberly throw.
Yeah.
Through. Yep.
Yeah,
that was.
Yeah. I was even going to talk about that too. Kind of touching on it now that you mention it. The Connor Moberly one, kind of through the interception, wasn't really great. But Carson Hansen kind of talked to him after the game. He kind of enjoyed playing a little defense, especially on when he was supposed to be playing offense. Forced that fumble, and then obviously Iowa State recovered the fumble back. So that was a really fun moment to see him on top of his 2-touchdown gig, get a forced fumble that got the ball back for the Cyclones, even though I don't think resulted in points.
I swear I watched the game, guys. I swear.
Who is this guy?
But now that you mention it, I can't really recall what happened during Beck's interception either.
I think at least from my recollection, I think it was more like a deeper pass. It kind of like maybe a little miscue. It was kind of I don't know if it was an overthrow or underthrow, but still kind of missed the receiver a little bit.
It was a bad throw. It was just a bad. It was a pretty bad throw. Yeah, I remember it now. It was a deeper shot, kind of down the right side of the side. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a bad throw, but it in this type of game, those happen. It's obviously going to happen. It's one of those games like it's not really a big deal. Arkansas State did not do anything with that interception anyways. So, yeah, I mean, besides Rocco throwing that one interception, he still turned in a 2-touchdown day. He scored one of the even rushed for another one, which is 2 now in the season. So. Yeah, it's looking good for Rocco, even though he went 11 for 18 for 204 yards. So, even in this game, didn't really be needed because they subbed him in for Connor Moberly. So I'm looking forward to see what he does in his second full conference season.
Yeah, and then when Becht did end up getting out of the game, it was Connor Moberly who took over for him. And I think that's been an interesting decision that the coaching staff of the offense has went with choosing Moberly over J.J. Cole. But I mean, I'd say it worked out with how he played. 5 for 7, 49 yards. He did throw that pick like we talked about. But, I mean, he did enough to kind of manage the offense and lead them to a couple scoring drives, I believe, in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, the Florida touchdown was him and Dylan Lee. I think both the rushing touchdowns. So, yeah. I mean, we weren't going to be expecting a lot from Moberly anyways. It's kind of just draining the clock at the end, kind of just killing time until this game was ended. So, it's interesting to see. It seems like Moberly's done the work from what Campbell says to earn that second quarterback spot behind Rocco Becht. So, yeah, it was good to see him get the step up, especially now that non-conference ending. Maybe we see him in Houston if the same result does occur in Houston.
So, with the NCAA rule on red shirts, you do get 4 appearances before you forfeit that red shirt, and he's appeared in 2 games now, and it seems as though he is the QB2 now, but. God forbid that Rocco Becht suffers like an injury that could keep him out 2 to 3 weeks. I wonder if they would opt for J.J. Cole.
I feel like they would.
For the more experienced and to keep Moberly's red shirt. But I wonder if that's more of what they're doing now, just kind of giving him his looks while he can before he can use up his red shirt, and then kind of being like, okay, now Cole, if Becht gets hurt, you are the guy. So I wonder how that dynamic would play out. But again, hopefully that never even comes up.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's a possibility that we could end up seeing J.J. Cole in some other games, maybe. But
maybe this week.
Maybe.
I mean,
it's like the one game on the schedule, I feel like, where we could see the backups come in just because of the quality of opponent.
Right, but even then, Houston could end up being a trap game, and we'll get into that more later. But from how Moberly played, he looks mobile out there, too. I liked what he did on the ground. I mean, when you look at it, 4 carries, 36 yards. When it comes to average yards per carry, Moberly is the top guy on this team right now, 9 yards per carry. Yeah. Obviously, he doesn't run it as much as the running backs, but, hey, he can run the ball.
Yeah, he's still. I mean, him and Becht got the same amount of carries, 4 yards, but obviously Becht's wasn't the same as Moberly's. Moberly's actually made plays outside the field. Was able to get more yards because Becht, one of them was the QB sneak, obviously, and the other ones, not really much. So it was good to see him being able to be kind of like a dual threat guy out there, even though passing wise, it wasn't the greatest day.
No, he doesn't really he doesn't look like a freshman. He looks like his body's he looks athletic. He looks like his body's pretty mature. I think he could. I mean, we haven't seen anything from J.J. Cole this year, so it's hard to say. But I think he could do solid in like a spot start role. Yeah. But yeah, he looks good for a freshman. I give him that.
Yeah, I think that the quality of quarterbacks here at Iowa State has definitely, we've seen great ones with obviously Brock Purdy, Rocco Becht's looking great. Connor Moberly might end up in the future being the next guy to take over for Rocco Becht if he does decide to stay throughout his entire collegiate career.
Yeah, and I like how he's sitting behind a guy like Rocco Becht. He gets to learn from kind of how Becht was, because it was. Or no, it was because he was with Hunter Deckers, never mind. But still, having a guy like Moberly sit behind a guy like Becht still is, like you said, really good for his progression, his development, to be one day when Becht leaves a great quarterback, potentially for Iowa State.
Yeah, and then I guess we can kind of now move over to the other side of things, Iowa State's defense. They really made it trouble all day for the Arkansas State quarterbacks. Started with Jalen Rayner, 5 for 16 passing, only 68 yards. He threw 2 picks. And then Timmy McClain enters the game, 4 for 7. He did throw that late garbage time touchdown, but
that had to be reviewed because we didn't know if it was completion or not. But yeah, it was kind of
only because of one of the. I'm sorry, Perkins. One of the worst punts I've ever seen.
It was.
That's what set up that touchdown. But yeah. I digress.
It was really bad. It didn't even look like he shanked it. It just looked like he didn't like get all of it.
Yeah, it went.
He
Didn't
missed
get
it.
tipped.
It's like one of those things that back through that pick was one of those bad
Right.
moments, but it didn't matter in the end.
Beck's pick didn't lead to a score. The punt led to a score.
It was practically a turnover.
Yeah, at that point, pretty much, yeah.
Basically,
Anyway,
Yeah.
the defense.
Yeah, the defense. I mean, Jalen Rayner throws those 2 interceptions, and I mean, like we were talking about when we were previewing this game, the defense was going to make it tough for him, and they did. He just could not generate anything against this Iowa State secondary.
And like we talked, kind of like we talked about before, Iowa State secondary is probably the strongest point of this team right now and of the season, And it was good to see guys like, kind of like one of my players to watch, Jeremiah Cooper, and then Malik Verdon finally both of them get their first interceptions of the year. I know I've been longing and yearning for that opportunity to get that. So it's good to see them get that. And obviously, just talking about the secondary, Bo Freeler led the team, or is tied for the team lead in tackles, only 6 total, 2 solo tackles. So, he's going to play the way he has, and obviously the secondary shut down Arkansas State's receiving game.
Yeah, I mean, all of his tackles came in the first half, though. So,
Yep.
I mean, I don't think he really played in the second half, but he didn't need to.
Yeah. I mean, the defensive backs had these quarterbacks in a blender.
Yeah.
I mean, Rayner, we talked about it. We knew he probably wasn't going to be able to throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And when McLean came in, he wasn't even really trying to throw the ball. I mean, he would drop back, take one look, and then if something wasn't there, he'd just take off.
Yep.
And you can see that in his rushing stats, 11 carries, 7 yards.
It's not even good, though.
He didn't even, he didn't, that's what I'm, he didn't
Not
even
even a
want
yard per carry, and he ran it over 10 times.
That's what I'm saying.
His longest
Like,
rush
he didn't
was
even
18 yards, too.
He didn't even have like running lanes. He just decided he didn't want to test the secondary.
I was probably counting sack yards, too.
Yeah, it's including sack yards, yeah.
But what I really am focusing on with this defense is the ability to stop the rush. And we finally kind of saw that in this game. I mean, given a decent portion of that did come off of a snap over the head of Jalen Rayner, which does count towards the stats. But we did a much better job of keeping the running backs in check in this game.
Absolutely. That was, again, that'll be the word of the day, refreshing, that I'll use. It was refreshing to see the Iowa State defense shut down the running game.
Yeah. We always enjoy to see, Iowa State play well, obviously. Just talking about another aspect of the defense, too, having 4 total sacks in the day. It's another aspect of it. It was interesting to see because, Iowa State runs, like you said, that 3-3-5 defense. So it's kind of hard already to kind of get sacks and pressure on the quarterback. So it was good to see that they were able to get to the quarterbacks today 4 times. Cooper Ebel had one. I saw Kennard Snyder, the transfer from Louisiana Monroe, had another sack. I don't think he had one against Iowa. I think the first one was against North Dakota, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then obviously like a guy like Joey Peterson and Ikenna Iziagu finally get a sack each per. So it was good to see them get their opportunity as well.
And I feel like that's a room that we haven't really talked enough about is that defensive line. I mean, when you kind of look at the stats overall for these guys, they are behind the defensive backs and the total tackles and everything like that. But I mean, there's a lot of them that are like really clumped together, like J.R. Singleton, Tyler Onyedem, Trent Jones, Dom Orange. They're all right there with each other in the stat sheet. So it's nice that they are able to kind of interchange things and they're all able to contribute to this defense.
One part of this game that I thought was very underrated defense. I want to add a little bit of special teams to this too. I thought the punt returns looked very good
from Jalen Noel.
Jalen Noel, he got 20 yards per punt return, and those are the little things. And it looked like he could bust a couple of those wide open for touchdowns. But those are the little things that you don't really think about in a 52-7 game. But once you get into games against like West Virginia, UCF, Utah, Kansas State, field position matters so much. And I really liked what we saw from the punt return game. That's what, for some reason, that just really stood out to me.
It's also interesting that they do go with Jalen Noel just because he is like that, number 1, maybe number 2 receiver for this team, just because he's the guy that they target a lot. So the fact that they're trusting him and willing to take that risk of him returning the kicks, I think that's an interesting notion that they do.
I think what you said there is key, trust. I think I don't know about you guys, but every time I'm watching my favorite teams, when a punt goes up in the air, I get nervous. I'm
Mhm.
like, don't drop this, don't drop this, don't drop this.
Talk about
But
Bayless
with-
Jones on the Bears. I don't even wanna talk about it. Don't even get me started.
But with Noel, you really don't got to worry about that. And I
Yeah.
think that's what the coaches love. And just calling a fair catch and just catching it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
So I think they just trust him to actually catch the ball, make the
Right.
right decisions, not just try to return everything. So I think we should keep him back
Yeah,
there
I
for
mean,
sure.
whenever I'm watching the Jets, I'm always like, call for a catch. Any team, honestly, just like call a fair catch. Don't do anything stupid because when you do muff a punt, then that's just like the biggest blow.
It's
that you
worse
can
than
take.
any sort of turnover when you muff a punt. It's
Yeah.
the worst.
And then again, you know, they've been doing this with Jalen Noel for a bit now. Even last season, he's been doing main target on receiving game, even though Higgins did kind of outcatch him and outgame in receiving yards. And then obviously, you know, punt returns, he's been phenomenal at his job doing that. So I feel like that could be one of the things that Jalen Noel could get an NFL opportunity with because, you know, it's kind of hard to make the NFL doing one specific thing. He's able to do punt returns really well and or being a receiver really well. So if being the receiver or leading receiver isn't working well for him, he could be the leading punt returner. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, he's showing off his skills both sides of the ball for sure.
You can kind of look at a guy like Kenny Nagoy as well, who kind of did that, kind of like a specialist type of guy with the Vikings. He's on the Jets now. New York Cyclones going strong. Go Jets. But
Go
yeah.
Vikings.
Okay. Well, yeah, I like what you said there, that Noel could definitely be a specialist at the very least in the NFL. I definitely think that he's a guy that should be taken on draft day. I don't know what round, but I think that, like TJ Tampa last year, he should be on an NFL roster
Both him and
when it comes
Higgins,
around.
100%.
For sure.
Yeah, and then obviously finishing off this game, kind of talking about the kicker, Kyle Conradi, you know, making his first
Yeah.
official field goal at Jack Trice Stadium, and like you talked about, Brett, even before, I don't know if you said it on the pod or if it was just kind of on the side too, you know, getting that big cheer when his name was called.
I think
from
we
the
said
stadium.
it on here. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So yeah, either way, you know, still amazing to see that he got his big moment on the on the field. You know, shows that really he is our guy. Made that big kick, especially in the state for the state of Iowa, and then obviously, you know, he only got one field goal, but didn't matter. It was only 31 yards, kicking 7 extra points, kind of like he did against North Dakota. So I'm looking forward to see what he does in conference play because he's looking like the guy.
Yeah, when they went through the team intros, obviously Rocco Becht had a big cheer, and then it stayed quiet for a long time. And then the last guy who got announced in the starting lineup was Kyle Conradi, and the stadium kind of, you know, really erupted at that point. And I was talking to my roommate after the game when we were, you know, both back home late Saturday night, and he was like, yeah, it just felt like, you know, forever, you know, until they called his name. Like they were like, you know, waiting. They were waiting for that moment probably to, you know, have Conradi's name out there. But I mean, it was cool when it happened. I'm really happy for him. I'm glad that he's the kicker on the school, and I think that he's going to have a really strong career as the kicker here in Ames.
He's just a freshman. We got Conradi for at least
long time.
3 years.
I mean, he's already a legend for beating Iowa in that game, making that field goal as a redshirt freshman.
Once he's of legal age, he'll never have to buy a drink around Ames again.
Oh, never.
100%.
If he stays consistent, yeah. And I don't even remember from even North Dakota game if he was like mentioned as the first special teamer, or is it just kind of the thing like they kind of did this on purpose for the biggest cheer to be the last guy. So I don't know if you two even remember that being the case.
I don't remember. It was a while ago.
Yeah, and you don't even remember really like obviously Rocco Becht's gonna get introduced first and get the biggest cheer because you know QB.
I mean, it's the quarterback.
Yeah,
you know?
it's the most important person on the field. You know, leading the team. So you know, yeah, just you know finishing it off kind of like Kyle Conradi being the guy is fun.
This will be such a bad clip if he misses a big kick somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I don't.
But he's not going to though.
I don't think he will. I mean, you never
he
know.
proves he can make kicks in the biggest moments.
I wonder if
Pressure isn't a real thing to him.
I wonder if they'll, you know, keep that up. The crowd of keeping the cheers for him, you know, loud and always there. I'll be keeping my eye on that in the Baylor game for sure.
Yeah, if he did get some key kicks against Houston, if it does get somehow uncomfortably close against the Cougars, you know, he could end up getting another big cheer because, maybe we'll see.
Yeah. So now, kind of getting into this week's game, Iowa State enters conference play 3-0 for the first time since 2022, which is only 2 years ago, but it feels like a long time just because of how non-conference went last season. But it will be the first ever game against Houston in the history of Iowa State's program. First time that these two schools will face off against each other. This one's going to be under the lights, Saturday night, 6 o'clock from Houston. Guys, what are you hoping for in this matchup?
You know, for me personally, I hope they don't really overlook this Houston team. You know, obviously they are 1-3 to start off this season. They're not really looking great. Their only win was against Rice, 33-7. But then again, they did hold Oklahoma to only 16 points on offense and only lost by 4 points. So, I know they just kind of got shut out by Cincinnati by 34 points, but it still is a team to watch. Like, I feel like their defense is probably the best aspect of the Houston game because they got some playmakers out there. So I think that's probably the one thing to watch if we were to see something to watch.
Yeah, I'm hoping this isn't a tight game.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being Houston did keep it tight with Oklahoma, granted, but when you're going on the road and getting beat by 34 by Cincinnati, that's not a good football team.
Not even just beat by 34. Like, they got shut out
34
to
0.
It
I mean,
was awful.
To a Cincy team that Iowa State kind of dominated last year, too.
To a Cincy team that is probably going to be happy if they make a bowl game. Like,
I'd say
very
so.
happy if they
Yeah.
make a bowl game.
And they got to come to Ames later in the season, too.
True.
Yes. I mean, I'm hoping Iowa State doesn't do too much messing around. I hope this is at least a 2-touchdown game. But, Big 12 road game. Can't just assume things. So just go in there, get the win. Don't start a Big 12 play like this.
Yeah, because when you do look at it and you do take in that aspect of playing games on the road, when you look at Big 12 games last week, the only Big 12, like the Big 12 versus Big 12 games, Utah was the only team to win on the road. And they did it against a ranked Oklahoma State team.
Yeah.
So,
one of the top contenders.
Yeah, that kind of shows how hard it is to win on the road. Like, I mean, BYU blew out Kansas State by 30 points at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we were talking about, Cincy blows out Houston, West Virginia survives against Kansas, Texas Tech. It was a really good game. It was on weather delay for a while.
Yeah.
But then, Texas Tech beats Arizona State. Colorado survives in overtime. Crazy game.
Yeah.
But, again, it's hard to win on the road in this conference, and Matt Campbell talked about that the other day. So he knows how hard it is to win on the road. We know how hard it is to win on the road. So they just really kind of have to go there and enter with a mindset of, we're here with a job to do, and we have to just come out and execute and win this game.
And they kind of talked about it. They just have the same, like Kenny said, they have the same message going into the game. There's something special to any specific team. Just play your style of ball.
Yep. Just
go out there and play your best, and obviously try and get the win. It's nothing special about, we're playing a Houston team, we should be able to beat them easily. They don't have that kind of mentality. So, I'm looking forward to what they do because, they look like a confident football team right now, and they should, I'll say they should take down a Houston team like this.
Yeah, I would hope so, but you really never know. The thing that I'm interested to look for within this Houston team is their quarterback, Donovan Smith, who used to be the quarterback at Texas Tech, who played Iowa State 2 seasons ago. So he's kind of familiar with the program in Ames. So, that matchup, just kind of knowing that he's seen the Cyclones before, not this group specifically, but just the team in general. That's going to be interesting, something I'm going to watch out for.
And it kind of reminds me of a guy like Jalen Rayner coming into this matchup. Currently his stats are 65.3% completion rating, only threw for 610 yards, and has more interceptions and touchdowns. He has a 1 touchdown to 2 interception ratio. And, obviously running game wise for Donovan Smith, he has the most carries for Houston with 37, but it's only gotten 31 yards on the ground. I'm pretty sure, like we said, it's accumulating sack yardage. So it seems like the Houston offensive line isn't looking the best either, considering how Donovan Smith has more carries than yards this year. So, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where I feel like Donovan Smith's not going to be able to throw against Iowa State secondary. He's kind of probably going to be looking to make plays with his legs.
Again, like we've been talking about, these mobile quarterbacks taking on the Cyclones, Ramfo
yeah,
with North Dakota. You'll get Rayner with Arkansas State, and now Smith with Houston. So it might be more of the same.
Smith is a guy that does have a lot of experience. He's been around the Big 12 for a long time. You guys talked about going back to Texas Tech.
Yep.
And I think what Pablo, you said, is perfect. I'm not going to lie and act like I've been watching a bunch of Houston football, but just looking at his numbers, it's clear that he probably hasn't had a lot of time to throw.
Yeah.
Because he's played good football in his career, but he's not playing good football right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if that has to do more with his offensive line or if it has to do more with his talent around him, but he's obviously has not been in a great situation to succeed so far, and I don't think Iowa State coming down helps him out any bit. I think the Cyclones should give them a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and you do talk about those different factors, and that kind of comes into Houston's situation as a whole because they are in the first year of a rebuild under Willie Fritz, who was the former coach of Tulane, who was a part of that beatdown that they had against USC in that bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a guy who can turn around the Houston program, it's probably him. Matt Campbell gave him a lot of praise at the press conference the other day. So obviously a lot of respect between those two coaches. But yeah, I don't see Smith having a whole lot of success, especially from what we've seen this secondary do. Not just last week, but the entire season, forcing 5 interceptions. They had the 2 last week. I think that the defense is gelling. The linebackers are starting to figure things out. A lot of those younger guys like Brazina, Cooper Ebel, Jacob Ellis, they're all starting to figure things out. And I think that they're definitely going to get better as the season goes along. They're just going to gel more. And I don't think that they're satisfied yet with how they're playing, even though they've been playing really strong on the defensive side of things.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you. The Iowa State linebackers have been playing well despite the injuries. But then kind of going back into Houston a little bit, I feel like with Willie Fritz, what he's kind of looking like here for this rebuilding year, he's kind of, Donovan Smith isn't in his senior year. I'm pretty sure he's probably done after this. I can't confirm that, though.
Who knows? Quarterbacks play till they're 30 now.
Well, yeah,
he probably has 3 more years of eligibility.
Look at Cam Rising.
Somewhere.
You look at Alan Bowman.
He's not really playing great. I don't think he will get an NFL opportunity. So I feel like now
UFL.
Yeah, UFL maybe. But I feel like Fritz is really evaluating these other 2 quarterbacks, and I know that I'm gonna butcher their names, especially this first guy. I'm gonna try and say it. Uiale. Yeah,
might be a Hawaiian
like that.
name.
And then Zion Chris.
Oh yeah, he's definitely Hawaiian.
Both of them are sophomores. It looks like they've been decent, I guess. Okay, being the backups to Donovan Smith. So I feel like right now it's kind of evaluating what these guys can do. Maybe he throws them out if Donovan Smith starts to struggle against Iowa State just to see what he's got. I feel like it's going to be a rough year for Houston, just to say the least.
I like how it sounds like we're crapping on them a little bit, but I like how you guys do mention though that this is like a rebuilding program. Houston just a few years ago was like a really very good group of 5 program, and then obviously you go under a coaching change, you move up to a power conference, things are going to get tough. But Houston has always been a team where people would like to describe it kind of like a sleeping giant, just based on like where it's located and how good the recruits could be there. So though Houston has been down their first couple seasons in the Big 12. Now they have a great coach in Willie Fritz. I would not be surprised if they, in the next coming years, make a charge to be one of the league's top teams.
I wouldn't be shocked either. We know how good Texas schools end up being in the Big 12. Texas obviously was a juggernaut for years past. Baylor won the conference a couple years ago. TCU made it to the national championship game. So before long, with this new coaching change, maybe a new culture comes to the Houston program, and it's a huge market too. Houston's the
4th biggest city in the country.
Yeah. And when you add all that together and the type of talent that is in the state of Texas, I wouldn't be shocked if before long Houston is one of those teams that ends up towards the top of the Big 12, like you're saying.
Yeah. And I know obviously right now they're more primarily known for the basketball program. But, one of those days I feel like if the basketball program starts to decline a little bit, this football program should be maybe succeeding them someday. You never know. But, yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm kind of hoping for Houston to do well, obviously, going towards the future. I'm not really one of those people that don't like the team, so, yeah.
The more competitive teams there are in the Big 12, the better.
Yes.
I know that, we've kind of been saying, it's a rebuilding year, but Houston I would consider to be one of the teams towards the bottom of the Big 12. But I think that with everything that they have in place right now, there is an opportunity for them to rise up. Yeah. And like we've been talking about weeks past, there's a lot of teams that can contend for the Big 12 championship, not just this year, but years to come. There's probably going to be a lot of shifting on who's up top, who's down low. So don't be surprised if Houston makes a push in a few years.
Yeah, Sooner or later, yeah.
Don't be surprised if anybody makes a push in the next few years. I
mean, if we ever get like a repeat champion, that might be crazy too.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of years where it's going to be a new team, a new team, a new team, a new team.
Yeah, sound like Texas and Oklahoma every year.
Yeah.
Big 12 sound like they're kind of flip-flopping. Maybe we get somebody like Oklahoma State to win it, but otherwise, yeah. I'm loving this new conference now, leaving teams like Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC where they can actually have, they get to play those SEC schools, get more attention and stuff. So, yeah, just in general, I feel like the Big 12's like going on the up and up.
Yeah.
Most fun league in the country.
I would say so. Just because of that parity. And then when you do kind of consider it, you look at a team like Utah and you look at a team like Oklahoma State, and everyone's kind of talking about those two being the top teams this year. But then you factor in, well, you've got these quarterbacks who are in their 7th year. They're going to be gone. There's that opportunity for other teams to move up into those top 2 positions. You look at a team like Iowa State, who has a lot of young talent, especially on the offensive side of things. Ton of sophomores on the Iowa State offense. So they're going to be around for this year. They'll make a push. 100% they can make a push. Then they can make a push the next year and the year after that. So expect the Cyclones to make a push for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, and then you talk about a team like Kansas State. I was going to mention, like, if you weren't going to mention Iowa State, I was going to talk about the 2 teams going into Ireland next year.
Obviously, I'm going to mention Iowa State.
No, yeah, obviously, but if I was going to kind of lead into it, kind of just talking about the 2 teams that do play in Ireland next year, those are probably the 2 teams that are going to be one of the, even this year and then probably next year, going to be one of the teams that contend for the Big 12 championship next year.
That's such a crazy game to start the season with next year.
That's going to be so much fun. Farmageddon in Ireland.
And I think that now that I feel like we kind of have the Big 12 realignment settled, like you wouldn't think there would be any more additions coming soon, but who knows?
Maybe basketball.
I feel like it's just
maybe
started.
Basketball.
Yeah.
But for football, I doubt it kind of. I think we're kind of set where we're at. So I think these first couple years are crucial of like kind of getting out ahead, building that program, putting the word out there that like, hey, we are the top dogs of the Big 12. Like if you want to go to a Big 12 school, come here. Yeah. And I think is very important. That's why I think Iowa State sits in such a good position going forward because they're really good now. But I think, I don't want to get too far ahead, but I think they're going to be better next year.
I would agree.
So I think Iowa State is in a great position going forward in this new Big 12.
And I think a lot of that goes with the coaching staff because Matt Campbell, the Big 12 now is a 16-team league, which is big. The super conferences are here, everybody. Get used to it. But Matt Campbell, he's in his 9th season at Iowa State, and he is the 2nd longest tenured Big 12 coach currently. So it shows that he cares about the program, and he wants to stay here, and he's built it, and he's now in a position, finally, where he has this opportunity right ahead of him to finally grab that Big 12 championship. And he had that opportunity in the COVID year, with Brock Purdy and Breece Hall and all of those guys. But now, I think more than ever, we are living in the golden age of Iowa State football.
Yeah, and you talk about Campbell being the 2nd longest tenured coach in the Big 12. I think that in a conference like the Big 12 where you're not going to get quite the high-end talent like you get in the SEC or the Big 10, having that, like Gundy, he's been there forever, and they're consistently one of the top programs in the Big 12.
I'd say one of the more underrated teams in the entire country, to be honest. The fact that they've been there year in and year out is crazy. And
then obviously the highest-ranked team in the Big 12 now with Kyle Whittingham. I don't know how long he's been there, but it's been forever. And so I think going forward, coaching in this conference means more than almost anything else. Having that consistency as a program, never because I don't think Iowa State's in a position where they're going to bottom out anytime soon, like with a 3-9 season.
No.
I don't think Oklahoma State's never been in that position. Utah has never been in that position.
No.
And I think that's what's most important going forward.
Building that culture, building that program, it starts with the coaches, 100%.
And then kind of flashing back into this, present day kind of Cyclones Cougars game. I don't know if we mentioned it, but Matt Campbell, has the opportunity to be the winningest head coach in Cyclones football history.
Yeah. And that's such a huge accomplishment that he's been able to do in just 9 seasons. Not even 9 full seasons. Like, it's been like 8 1/3 seasons.
Yeah.
And, when you think about it, the fact that he's been able to do it in honestly such a short amount of time is kind of jarring in a sense that it kind of makes you think of like Iowa State football, obviously, way, way back in the day. Like, they weren't good. Like, I mean, the 80s, the 90s, the 70s, like, I mean, those years before. But once Dan McCarney kind of came in and took over this program, I think Matt Campbell said it best. He kind of set the tone of, like, what needs to happen around here. He made it so that coaches like Campbell can succeed at the highest level. And when you talk to the players, they always, I mean, they've told us, like, Campbell's not the type of guy to kind of go out there and say, or like even like take credit or just talk about the accomplishment of getting that 57th win, that first place win. But I mean, it's a big deal.
It's huge, yeah. This is the program lead. This isn't like, oh, you're passing like third place or second place. You know, it'd still be a big honor, but at the same time, this is for the program's history. You know, talking about a guy like Dan McCartney who's able to be successful in, you know, getting to those 56 wins, but then now having a guy like Campbell, you know, talking about those 8 and he said a third or 2/3 seasons he's been here. Yeah. But yet still, it's amazing to see what he's been able to do in his time with Iowa State, and I feel like he's still got a couple more years at least in him to coach this program before he finally calls it quits. So, yeah, I mean, this game, I know if they do, but we are able to take down Houston in Houston. I'm looking forward to seeing that celebration on social media to see what the team does. Probably dump the Gatorade on him and start partying in the locker room, and even then he still thank his teammates for it. You know, it's really them that does the work, like he says. It's not really him. So, yeah, it's gonna be a fun time when he does get that next win.
Yeah, Campbell really deserves this record, man. I mean, I think Iowa State fans, even including myself, sometimes will watch some games where we lose, and it's like, dang, like we're supposed to be better than this. Like, like you get frustrated, but then you take a second to sit back and remember how bad Iowa State's football program was before he came. Yeah. Like, we were getting mad about an 8-4 season a couple years ago.
The fact that we're getting mad about 8-4 seasons is crazy, honestly.
Exactly. And I think people just forget that sometimes. I don't think you see this more when it's going bad, but I think people take for granted what Campbell has done for this program. You know, outside of a couple of those McCarney, I mean, I'm looking at McCarney won 56 games, yes, but he went 56 and 85. Yeah. I mean, he did get off to a rough start, but then he did put together some like consistent winning near the end of his tenure. But 56 and 85, I mean, that's our best head coach of all time before Campbell.
Yeah, but McCartney was...
By a wins number.
By a wins number, yes.
Because, I mean, McCartney was one of the longest tenured coaches in the program. A lot of them just lasted just a few years, it felt like.
And during that tenure, he finished inside the top 25 one time. What Campbell has done for this program cannot be put into words.
Yeah. When you look at the amount of times that Iowa State has been ranked in the top 25, like weeks they've been in the top 25, like from, I forget what it is, like 2016 or 2017, there's 33 weeks that they've been in the top 25 from then until now. When you look at every week, every year before that in the entire AP poll through like 1960 or something, it's like 40 weeks. So there's this whole like half century of just mediocrity and just bad. And then now we're in this, not even a decade of just this man who has brought so many people onto his staff and has really, I mean, he talks about it all the time, just turning around the culture, building the culture, not even winning the games, but just like building the players into the people that they are, like off the field. That's what he always says that he hangs his hat on. But the fact that he's been able to do that and has been able to consistently win games, make it to bowl games, I think that says a lot about him, not just as a coach, but just as a person.
And you look at the NFL talent he's produced too. Like, it's amazing NFL talent. Obviously, headlined by Brock Purdy, Breece Hall, and then even talking about guys like Alan Lazard and David Montgomery. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Will McDonald.
Yeah, and even future stars. Maybe Rocco Becht goes to the NFL someday.
Jalen Noel, like we're talking about.
Yeah, Jaden Higgins too. Yeah, both senior receivers.
Bo Freeler.
Yeah, Bo Freeler, I think, could get an opportunity. I don't know if he will get highly drafted. He probably might be a later round pick or undrafted. Hopefully not. We hope he's drafted, obviously. But, you know, and even Jeremiah Cooper, you know, getting him to like that, he's getting more national attention with all his interceptions, and then obviously getting one on Saturday helps. So, yeah, I mean, basically what you said, Kaden, you can't put it into words. Like, it's just all like he's the guy that Iowa State has longed for this football program, and they finally have that.
And I mean, think about, especially nowadays in college football, how often coaches at lesser, like smaller programs find success and then jump to a bigger team.
Yep.
And there's never been anything confirmed about like the rumors of like other bigger schools wanting him. But when there's smoke, there's fire. Other schools wanted him.
Yeah.
Bigger programs wanted him. Big programs that could pay him more money wanted him. But he decided to stick in Ames, build his culture, and I think obviously now he's here for the long haul. If he would have left, he would have done it by now, I believe.
And I think maybe I can't confirm this honestly, but maybe I don't even know if he getting some NFL attention, not just like
I feel like he was.
I believe
I think
so.
he had
Yeah,
at least not for maybe not head coach, but at least some position on an NFL team, like what Nate Scheelhaas got with the Los Angeles Rams last season.
Yep.
But any NFL team I think would love to have a guy like Campbell on their roster, whether it be for head coach or just any other position coach anywheres. But yeah.
I think the thing that can't be overlooked, though, is that the guy who is going to be the most excited for him when he breaks this record is Dan McCarney.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hands
for sure.
down.
He will be. I think he'd be there for the Baylor game right before. It's going to be a huge moment. That's a photo right there for sure.
Yeah. I would expect a whole ceremony if that happens, and it's going to be a night game.
It's going to be emotional.
The whiteout uniforms, and
maybe we see some of his alumni come back. I know it's the NFL season; they still kind of had him, but maybe they come back just to congratulate.
First game in October.
Yeah. Maybe
that Baylor game is going to be a scene if Campbell can get this done.
Especially now that they planned it like this. They've I think the kickoff time's 6 p.m. against
6 p.m.
Baylor. Yep, and it's on Fox, so.
National TV.
National TV.
Big boy TV.
I feel like they knew what they were doing when they're scheduling this Baylor game because they kind of expect what is expected to happen against this Houston team come this Saturday. So, I'm just excited to see that moment.
Yeah, but before we get ahead of ourselves, Iowa State travels to Houston this Saturday, 6 p.m. Oh, no, the Baylor game's at 6:30.
Yeah, 6:30.
Baylor's 6:30. Houston is 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Houston, 6 o'clock this week. That game's going to be on FS1. Matt Campbell will go for the all-time wins record in Iowa State history, going for his 57th win. This would also be Iowa State's first 4-0 start since the year 2000, should they win this game. So there's a lot riding on it. We can't thank you guys enough for sticking with us through this whole thing. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you stick around for our next episode where Matt Campbell likely will become the all-time wins leader in Iowa State history. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.